out there, you're talking directly with employees, you're avoiding any other middlemen or middlewomen or any other kind of body that may filter the message that goes between staff and senior leaders. One other example, an organisation that we work with, I don't think we have any representatives here today, but ResMed, we have a video on our website that Frank Basil helped put together on their continuous improvement system. Basically, it was a process with which, in their manufacturing area, they gathered a very large number of suggestions, and they continue to do this, large number of suggestions of what can be improved. They then get employees to vote on these suggestions, so it's not management only being involved in making a decision of what to do, employees vote on that, and then they enact those, and they go up on these big circular boards, typically 3 at a time in terms of what they're putting in place. And they've costed those, and they have saved the organisation millions of dollars in terms of improvement. Sometimes it's a very simple thing in terms of reusing foam packaging. Sometimes they're much more substantial in terms of changing the process with which they're making their products. Let me move on. Let's have a look at the benefits and costs of voice. 2 major benefits of voice. The first one being information. It may be information about a client that's about to defect, an employee that's engaged in fraud. It could be a process that is producing too much waste. It could be a machine that's about to fail. All of those issues and 100 others may be the type of information that you can gather through voice mechanisms in your organisations that often the folks at the top or even middle management in large organisations may not be aware of, but the folks on the front line have access to that level of information. So one of the major benefits of employee voice is gathering that information and finding a way to get it to the senior folks within an organisation. The second major benefit of voice is on the side of the voice E, as it were, in terms of their level of engagement. Voice, self-expression is innately satisfying. As human beings, we want to express our opinions, our feelings about issues. It's that much better when someone's actually listening, and if this person doesn't listen, then we'll tend to find someone else who does listen to that issue. Voice is also a key part of that sense of procedural justice in dealing with issues, that when we see a problem being dealt with, we feel far more comfortable when we feel that someone, either myself or someone like me, has had an opportunity to have input into decision making. But there are costs to voice. Voice takes time. It's not something that happens immediately. You also need an accurate and unbiased way of collecting that voice and also then summarising it. You think of TV these days, or even indeed the internet, as mechanisms for voice, and the sheer noise that exists there. You have to find a way of turning noise into usable voice. So there has to be a system for aggregating and summarising the voice that you are collecting. And finally, referring to my issue that I mentioned before, that there are risks of safety and power within organisation. Safety in terms of the person who's raising an issue, me feeling safe that if I contribute this idea, I'm not going to be punished in some way. There's also safety from the perspective of leaders, though. One of the major issues that we come across when we're running organisational surveys is when you feed back results, there's the risk of defensiveness of leaders in terms of, you said that, surely I've put in that enormous amount of effort over the past 12 months to deal with that performance appraisal issue and you're still hassling me on it. There is that risk of defensiveness. And, as I mentioned before, that concern about loss of power and control in that process. If you mash those two things together, we come up with, at the bottom there, an indication of when voice is going to be effective and probably when it's not going to be so effective. You'll get positive return on investment for voice when leaders don't know all that there is to know and they acknowledge that. And the other side of that is you'll get a positive return on investment when participants have a diversity of knowledge and that there's a large number of participants who are contributing to the decision-making process. You actually don't need people who are highly knowledgeable. What you need is people who have little bits of knowledge that come from different perspectives. So the diversity of that knowledge is particularly important. And so long as you have a large number of people who have a diversity of little bits of knowledge, when you pool that, then there can be a substantial amount of additional information that goes into a decision-making process. The last return that you'll get from voice is participants will benefit from voice